With his last breath, Kemi whispered a promise that would change everything. "Amara!" His voice cracked like dried earth. "Come closer." She leaned down, her calloused hands that had shaped clay alongside his for 8 years, trembling as they found his face. The workshop around them held their story. Shelves lined with terracotta pots bearing the signature swirls only they could create together. "The sickness is taking me," Kemi whispered, his eyes focusing with the intensity she recognized from his most intricate work. "But I need you to live. Promise me, when I'm gone, find another man. Have the children we couldn't." "Kemi?" "No," Amara's voice caught. "Don't speak of. Promise me." His grip tightened on her wrist with surprising strength. "The village people will pressure you. They'll say a woman can't survive alone without a husband. But you," he coughed, specks of blood on his lips, "you're stronger than all of them know. But I still want you to get married if I am no more." Amara nodded, but something flickered in her dark eyes. A look Kemi had seen when she worked on her most ambitious pieces, the ones that defied traditional forms. Her mind was already racing with plans he couldn't imagine. "There's something else," he gasped. "The real reason we have no children. It's not you. The doctor in Lagos told me. It's an infection, treatable, but I was too sick and proud to." His words dissolved into another coughing fit. "Shh," Amara soothed, her heart breaking even as her resolve strengthened. "Rest now, my love." As dawn painted the sky the color of fired clay, Kemi's breathing stopped, but Amara didn't collapse in grief as expected. Instead, she sat in the silence, surrounded by their life's work, then rose with sudden, mysterious purpose. Before the first neighbor could arrive with condolences, she moved to the wooden chest beneath their bed and retrieved tools she'd hidden there. Modern implements that gleamed strangely among the traditional pottery supplies. When Mama Foluk burst through the compound gates with 3 other women, already wailing the traditional mourning cries, she found Amara kneeling beside Kemi's body, her hands moving with mastered precision beneath a white cloth. "Amara, what are you doing? The body must be prepared properly." "I know what I'm doing," Amara said quietly, not looking up. There was something in her tone that made the older women step back, something that suggested secrets deeper than grief. By midday, Kemi was wrapped in white cotton, ready for viewing. But as the village women prepared his body with traditional oils and prayers, none noticed the small bundle Amara had carefully hidden in her head wrap, or the way she kept glancing toward the road to the motor park with eyes that held forbidden knowledge. She left to inform her people? Chief Adebayo's wife, Mama Femi, stood in the empty compound 3 days after Kemi's death, her hands on her wide hips, disbelief written across her weathered face. Left her own husband's mourning rites? The other women exchanged meaningful glances. In their village, a widow didn't abandon the 40-day mourning period. She certainly didn't disappear to Lagos with nothing but a small traveling bag and eyes that held secrets. She said urgent family briefing. Offered Sade, the young woman who lived next door, though doubt colored her voice. But her family lives 2 towns away. Mama Femi sucked her teeth with theatrical disapproval. That girl always thought she was different, too educated for her own good. She paused, studying Amara's empty compound with narrowed eyes. Mark my words, something strange is happening here. What they didn't know was that Amara was currently sitting in a sterile clinic in Victoria Island, her small bundle containing her husband's manhood unwrapped on a metal table as a doctor in a white coat nodded approvingly. "Remarkable preservation technique," Dr. Adebayo said, adjusting his glasses with professional interest. "You said you learned this from your pottery work?" "Clay preservation, moisture control, temperature regulation," Amara explained steadily, her voice betraying no emotion despite the magnitude of what she was asking. "The principles are the same. And the sperm samples we collected before his final illness? Still frozen. I made the initial payment 6 months ago." Her preparation had been meticulous. born from love that refused to accept defeat. Dr. Adeora smiled with both admiration and concern. Then, we can proceed, but you understand this is highly unconventional? The preservation method you've used, combined with what you're asking. I understand perfectly. Amara's voice held the same certainty she'd had when Kemi first taught her to center clay on the wheel. My husband and I will have our child. The doctor used her plastic surgery experience to form a customized silicone pleasure machine for Amara, using her husband's manhood. 3 days later, Amara returned to the village carrying a small, carefully wrapped bundle and a secret that would shatter every assumption they'd ever made about love, death, and the boundaries between them. Amara, Mama Foloke rushed to embrace her, relief flooding her face. We were so worried. Where were you? Lagos, taking care of arrangements. Amara's eyes didn't meet hers, but there was something new in her bearing, a quiet confidence that hadn't been there before. Now I can properly begin mourning my husband. That night, as Amara settled into her compound alone for the first time in 8 years, strange sounds drifted from her bedroom window. Mama Femi, who lived close enough to hear, pressed her ear to the shared wall, her curiosity overcoming propriety. Was that laughter? And something else? Sounds that made her face burn with embarrassment? Impossible, she whispered to herself. But the sounds continued, rhythmic and unmistakably intimate, until well past midnight. By morning, she would have questions that demanded answers. Within a month, the village buzzed with whispers, and the first suitor arrived like a predator sensing opportunity. Emeka, a successful yam trader from the next village, appeared at Amara's gate with a live goat and a confident smile that faltered the moment she opened the door. Her radiant appearance caught him off guard. Sister Amara, I know you're still mourning, but when you're ready. He paused, studying her glowing skin with confusion. I want to fill the space left by your late husband. I can tell you are still missing him, but I can help you forget. I'm not interested. Amara cut him off, not even opening the gate fully, her voice carrying an authority that made him step back. But you haven't even heard my offer. I have 3 wives already, but for a skilled potter like you. My husband is enough for me. Emeka blinked in bewilderment. Your husband is dead. My husband is enough. Amara repeated with a finality that sent chills down his spine, closing the gate with a decisive click. The next week brought Tunde, a palm wine tapper with gold teeth and a new motorcycle, his confidence evaporating just as quickly. 2 days after that, Shehu arrived with jewelry from Kano, only to meet the same mysterious refusal. Word had spread that the beautiful young potter was available, and every unmarried man within 50 kilometers seemed determined to claim her, yet none could explain why she seemed more vibrant than ever. Amara, this is madness, Mama Fuluk pleaded one afternoon as they watched another rejected suitor storm away, his pride wounded and his gifts unused. You're young, skilled, beautiful. Any of these men would treat you well. I don't need any man, Amara replied, her hands never pausing as she shaped a water jug on her wheel. But Mama Folak noticed something that made her deeply uneasy. Despite the stress of constant suitors and the loss of her husband, Amara seemed to glow with an inner light. Her skin was radiant, her movements fluid, her smile frequent every morning. She looked like a woman thoroughly satisfied with life, like a woman who shared her bed with a loving husband. But how will you manage the compound alone? The heavy work? What about children? Mama Folake pressed, her maternal instincts warring with growing suspicion. Amara's hands stilled on the clay for just a moment, and her smile held secrets. Children will come in God's time. That evening, as the sun set behind the compound walls painting everything golden, Chief Adebayo himself appeared at Amara's gate. The most respected man in the village, a man whose word was law, stood with a bottle of palm wine and his own proposition, his patience finally exhausted. "Amara, my daughter, I've been patient, but this foolishness must stop." "Good evening, Chief. How can I help you?" Her voice remained respectful but unmoved. "You know why I'm here. You can't live alone indefinitely. Choose one of these suitors, or I'll choose for you." His voice carried the weight of tradition and authority. Amara's voice remained steady, though her eyes flashed with defiance. "With respect, Chief, I'm not available for marriage. Every woman needs a husband. I have a husband." The words fell like stones into still water. "If I need a man, I know what to do." Chief Adebayo's patience snapped like a dry twig. "Your husband is dead and buried." "My husband," Amara said softly, her voice carrying an undertone that made the chief's skin crawl, "is enough for me, and he satisfies me. If you must be with any man, it has to be done as custom demands," the chief shouted, his voice echoing across the compound. "I hope the rumors I am hearing are not true." The chief stormed away, but something in her tone bothered him like a thorn under the skin. That night, as he lay in bed beside his sleeping wife, he made a decision that would change everything. If Amara thought she could defy village customs, she was about to learn otherwise. Chief Adebayo approached Amara's compound just before midnight, moving with the stealth he'd learned as a young hunter. The village was asleep, palm fronds rustling in the night breeze like whispered secrets. He would catch her in whatever deception she was playing and put an end to this nonsense once and for all. But as he reached her compound wall, his blood turned to ice. Wait. His body froze mid-step. What is that? Sounds were drifting from inside her bedroom. Sounds that made his hands shake and his mouth go dry. A woman's voice, breathless with pleasure that no widow should know. Deep moans that spoke of intimate satisfaction. The rhythmic creaking of a bed that told stories the village would never believe. This can't be real. Chief Adebayo's world tilted on its axis, his mind racing like a trapped animal. Someone is with her. But who? When? How? His thoughts spiraled into chaos. No man had been seen entering her compound. He was certain of that. The women watched constantly during the day like hawks circling prey, and he'd positioned his nephew to observe from the road at night. Every evening. Every single evening for weeks. Am I losing my mind? Is this some trick of the wind? But then he heard it clearly, cutting through his doubts like a blade. Yes! Oh, yes! Kemi, the chief's eyes widened until they hurt, his breath catching in his throat. She's calling her dead husband's name! Her voice was thick with passion, raw with need. But there was no answering voice, only the sound of Amara responding to a familiar rhythm common at this time of the night between two married couples. This is impossible. Dead men don't. They can't. His thoughts fractured, unable to complete the sentence that defied everything he believed about life and death. He crept closer, his legs moving against his will, pressing his ear to the mud brick wall while his heart hammered against his ribs like a caged bird. Maybe I'm hearing things. Maybe grief has driven her mad, and she's just talking to herself. But the sounds continued for another 30 minutes, intimate, unmistakable, painting pictures in his mind that shattered every assumption he'd ever held about the world. When silence finally fell like a heavy blanket, Chief Adebayo retreated to his compound on trembling legs, his mind reeling with questions that had no rational answers. She must be having sex, but with who? A ghost? A demon? Have I gone mad? The questions haunted him until dawn, circling his thoughts like vultures, offering no peace, no answers, only the terrible certainty that he had witnessed something that should not exist. By morning, he'd told his wife, the words tumbling out of him like water from a broken pot, unable to keep the burden of knowledge to himself. His wife's eyes had widened in disbelief, then narrowed with the calculating look of a woman who smelled scandal. What if I was wrong? What if there's some explanation? But even as the doubts crept in with daylight, he couldn't shake the memory of those sounds, so real, so unmistakable. By midday, the entire village buzzed with whispers that grew wilder with each telling, like flames feeding on dry grass. "She has a lover," Mama Femi declared at the market, her voice carrying the authority of someone who'd heard the impossible with her own ears. Every night, someone sneaks into her compound. "But who?" asked Said, her young face creased with confusion that mirrored the chief's own torment. "We've been watching. No man enters during the day." "Exactly," Chief Adebayo thought, his mind still churning. "So how is this possible?" Uenja. "Then he comes through the bush at night," another woman suggested, though her voice lacked conviction. "Like a thief. But my nephew would have seen. We've been watching the paths, the roads, even the forest edge." The chief's doubts battled with the evidence of his senses. Unless the scandal consumed the village like wildfire, but underneath the gossip, deeper currents of fear began to flow. Some said Amara had brought shame on her dead husband's memory. Others whispered darker theories. Witchcraft, ancestral spirits, deals with forest demons that defied the natural order. What if they're right? The chief found himself wondering in the dark hours before dawn, what if something unnatural is happening? But as the weeks passed, and no mysterious lover was ever spotted, despite increased vigilance, the whispers took a new and shocking turn. Amara's wrapper grew tight around her waist. Her breasts filled out with the fullness of approaching motherhood. Her skin took on the unmistakable glow of early pregnancy. "Now I know I'm not losing my mind," Chief Adebayo thought with a mixture of vindication and terror. Something is happening here. Something impossible. 3 months after Chief Adebayo's midnight discovery, the truth could no longer be hidden, and the village would demand answers that challenged everything they believed about the world. Pregnant. Mama Folake's calabash of palm wine crashed to the ground, the sound sharp as breaking pottery in the sudden silence. How? Amara stood in her compound, her rounded belly visible beneath her loose wrapper, facing a crowd of village women who'd come like vultures drawn to carrion. Chief Adebayo stood with the male elders, his face thunderous, with righteous anger and confusion that ate at him like acid. "Who was the father?" the chief demanded, his staff of office trembling in his grip. "My husband. Your husband is dead. My husband is enough for me." Her voice carried the same calm certainty that had maddened them all. The crowd erupted in angry voices that rose like smoke from a fire. Some called her names that would have started wars between families. Others muttered about supernatural intervention that challenged the very foundations of their beliefs. "This is impossible," declared the village's oldest woman, Mama Agba, who'd delivered half the babies in the community and thought she'd seen everything life could offer. "A woman cannot get pregnant from a dead man." "Can't she?" Amara asked quietly, her question hanging in the air like incense. "You must tell us the truth," Mama Femi shouted, her voice cracking with frustration and fear. "When your husband was alive, you did not get pregnant for him. How come he can now impregnate you from the grave after several months?" The question struck the crowd like lightning, illuminating the impossibility of what they were witnessing. As her pregnancy progressed, the village watched in fascination and horror, unable to look away from the miracle or curse unfolding before them. Amara continued her pottery work, her hands sure on the clay, even as her belly swelled with impossible life. She attended no social gatherings, but seemed content in her solitude, glowing with the satisfaction of a woman blessed by forces beyond their understanding. At night, the sounds from her compound continued, whispered pleasure, gentle moans, and those other sounds that made the neighbors blush and gossip like teenagers discovering forbidden knowledge. When the rains came in earnest, washing the earth clean, so did Amara's labor. Mama Agba, despite her moral outrage, couldn't abandon a woman in childbirth. It went against everything she believed about life and duty. She arrived at the compound with 2 younger midwives to find Amara calm and prepared, her breathing controlled as contractions gripped her like the hands of destiny. "The baby comes fast," Mama Agba muttered, her experienced hands guiding the birth while her mind struggled with questions that had no answers, like it's eager to enter the world. At dawn, as the village roosters crowed their ancient song, a healthy baby boy slipped into the world with a cry that could be heard 3 compounds away, a sound that announced the impossible made manifest. "He's beautiful," whispered one of the midwives, wrapping the infant in soft cotton while tears ran down her face. "But who does he look like?" The baby had Kemi's strong chin, Amara's eyes, and the potter's hands they'd both shared. Long fingers that seemed made for shaping clay and dreams into reality. Word spread like fire in dry grass. By afternoon, the entire village had gathered in Amara's compound, demanding answers to questions that threatened the very fabric of what they thought they knew about life and death. Chief Adebayo stood at the front, his authority requiring an explanation that could restore order to a world turned upside down. "Amara," he said sternly, holding his staff of office like a weapon against the unknown, "you will tell us the truth about this child's father." Amara emerged from her bedroom, the baby in her arms, her head held high like a queen addressing her subjects. She looked at the sea of faces, some angry, some curious, some afraid of truths that might shatter their world. "You want to know the truth about my husband?" she asked, her voice carrying clearly across the compound like the call of a priestess. "Yes," several voices shouted in unison. Amara smiled, the expression transforming her face into something luminous and terrible. "Then, come inside." The crowd squeezed into Amara's small bedroom like water forced through clay, pressing against the walls decorated with her finest pottery. In the corner sat the wooden chest that had belonged to her and Kemi, now draped with white cloth like a shrine to mysteries they couldn't imagine. Amara placed her baby in a woven basket with the reverence of a priestess handling sacred objects, then turned to face the villagers. Her hands, steady as always, reached for the cloth covering the chest, while the room held its collective breath. "For 8 years, people whispered about my empty womb," she began, her voice calm as still water. "They said I was cursed, that I'd failed as a wife, but the truth was different." She pulled away the white cloth like a magician, revealing the impossible, revealing a clay jar unlike any they'd seen, perfectly glazed, with intricate symbols carved around its rim, connected to what looked like modern medical equipment that belonged in a different world. But the shape looks familiar to the older women. "My husband discovered the real problem 6 months before he died. I had an infection, treatable, but by then he was already sick. The doctor in Lagos helped us prepare for the future." Mama Agba stepped closer, her eyes widening with a mixture of wonder and terror. "What is this?" "My husband's manhood," Amara said simply, the words falling into the silence like stones into a deep well. "Preserved using the same techniques we used for our finest pottery. Temperature control, moisture balance, ceramic preservation, combined with modern medicine." The crowd gasped as one organism, some stepping backward, as if the revelation might contaminate them. Chief Adebayo's mouth fell open, his staff of office forgotten in his trembling hands. "Before Kemi died, we collected what we needed for our child. The doctor in Lagos used our preserved materials to help me conceive. My husband kept his promise to give me children, even after death." "This is witchcraft," someone whispered, the accusation hanging in the air like smoke. "This is love," Amara replied firmly, her voice carrying the conviction of absolute truth. "And science. My husband lives on in our son. I told you all, my husband is enough for me. I meant it literally." Mama Falake found her voice first, though it came out strangled. "The sounds at night? I use the manhood to pleasure myself," she said without shame, her honesty brutal and beautiful. I talked to him. I remember our intimacy. I celebrate the child he gave me. Amara's smile was radiant with the light of love that had conquered death itself. Every night, I honor our love with his special tool. The silence stretched like a held breath until Chief Adebayo cleared his throat, struggling with concepts that challenged everything he thought he knew about the world. This is impossible? Amara challenged, her eyes blazing with the fire of a woman who had rewritten the rules of existence. Or just different from what you expected? How do we know this is true? Demanded Amaka, the yam trader who'd been her first rejected suitor, his voice thick with wounded pride and disbelief. Amara lifted her baby from the basket with the tenderness of absolute love. Look at him. Those are Kemi's hands, Kemi's chin. This is Kemi's son, born from Kemi's seed, raised in Kemi's compound by Kemi's wife. She turned to the clay jar reverently, her voice taking on the cadence of prayer. I preserved what mattered most, not just his body, but his dreams, his love, his future. Every potter knows the secret is in the firing. My husband and I simply learned to fire our love in a different way. The crowd began to murmur, some in awe, others in confusion, all struggling with a truth that redefined the possible. So you never had a lover? Asked Saad, her young voice trembling. I have the only lover I ever wanted or needed. Death doesn't end love, it just changes its form. Chief Adebayo struggled with the revelation, like a man drowning in concepts too large for his understanding. As the village's authority, he should condemn this. But what law had been broken? What tradition violated? Amara had remained faithful to her husband, borne his child, and never remarried. The child, he said finally, grasping for solid ground in a world gone liquid. What will you call him? Kemi Jr., Amara replied without hesitation. He'll learn pottery from both his parents, just as we planned. As the crowd slowly dispersed, some shaking their heads in denial, others whispering in amazement that would fuel stories for generations, Mama Agba lingered behind like wisdom incarnate. Child, she said quietly, what you've done, some will call it madness, and others will call it the greatest love story ever told, Amara replied, settling into the chair beside her pottery wheel with her baby in her arms. How much will it cost us to preserve our husband's tool? Mama Kemi whispered to her husband, her voice carrying a mixture of horror and possibility that would change more lives than anyone could imagine. A quest into a world of endless pleasure. 6 months later, as the dry season painted the sky orange each evening, visitors to the village often stopped to watch Amara at her pottery wheel. Baby Kemi gurgled in his basket nearby while his mother shaped clay with hands that seemed to hold generations of knowledge and love that transcended the boundaries of life itself. The compound thrived under her care, like a garden blessed by gods. Her pottery had gained fame throughout the region. People said her pieces held something special, fired with a love that transcended the boundaries of life and death, shaped by hands that had learned to mold eternity itself. The suitors had stopped coming. Some said it was out of respect, others from fear of competing with a love so powerful it had conquered death itself. The truth was simpler. Amara had proven what she'd always known, what she'd demonstrated with clay and fire, and the fierce devotion of a heart that refused to accept defeat. Her husband was enough. As the sun set behind the palm trees, painting the sky the color of fired clay, mother and son worked together in comfortable silence. She shaped vessels that would hold water, food, and dreams for future generations, while he reached tiny hands toward the spinning wheel, already drawn to the craft that had defined his parents' love and would carry their legacy forward. In the fading light, some villagers swore they could see 3 shadows by the pottery wheel instead of 2. Amara, little Kemi, and the man whose love had found a way to transcend every boundary, even death itself. The widow had kept her secret, shocked her village, and redefined what it meant to be faithful. In a world that said women needed men to be complete, she had proven that true love, fired in the kilns of devotion and preserved with the skill of a master potter, could be enough to last not just a lifetime, but beyond. Her husband was enough. Her love was eternal. And their story would be told around village fires for generations to come. The tale of the potter's wife who preserved more than clay, who shaped more than vessels, who fired her love so perfectly that not even death could crack it. The clay was still warm beneath her hands as night fell over Ogbomoso, and somewhere in the darkness, love continued its ancient work of creating something beautiful from the dust of the earth.